With all the patience of a small girl who has something important to wait for, Sophie sat motionless on the windowsill. How much longer, she wondered. What time do queens wake up? Faint stirrings and distant sounds came to her from deep inside the belly of the palace. Then, all at once, beyond the curtains, she heard the voice of the sleeper in the bedroom. It was a slightly blurred sleep talker's voice. "Oh no," it cried out. "No, don't. Someone stop them. Don't let them do it. I can't bear it. No, please stop them. It's horrible. Oh, it's ghastly. No, no, no." This is how the Queen speaks. She speaks with this posh voice. If you've ever heard her. Okay. She is having the dream, Sophie told herself. It must be really horrid. So horrid just means horrible, yeah? Nasty. I feel so sorry for her, but it has to be done. After that, there were a few moans. Then there was a long silence. Sophie waited. She looked over her shoulder. She was terrified that she would see the man with the dog down in the garden staring up at her. But the garden was deserted. Deserted just means empty, yeah? A pale summer mist hung over it like smoke. It was an enormous garden, very beautiful, with a large, funny-shaped lake at the far end. There was an island in the lake, and there were ducks swimming in the water. Inside the room, beyond the curtains, Sophie suddenly heard what was obviously a knock on the door. She heard the doorknob being turned. She heard someone entering the room. "Good morning, Your Majesty," a woman was saying. It was the voice of an oldish person. So oldish just means quite old. There was a pause and then a slight rattle of china and silver. So china is like cups and things, yeah? Things that cups are made out of, porcelain. "Will you have your tray on the bed, ma'am, or on the table?" "Oh, Mary, something awful has just happened." This was a voice Sophie had heard many times on radio and television, especially on Christmas Day. It was a very well-known voice. So in England, every Christmas, the Queen does a speech, yeah? It's called the Queen's Christmas message, I think. "Whatever is it, ma'am? I've just had the most frightful dream. It was a nightmare. It was awful." "Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, but don't be distressed. You're awake now and it will go away. It was only a dream, ma'am." "Are you real?" the Queen said to Sophie. Yes, Your Majesty," Sophie murmured. "What is your name?" "Sophie, Your Majesty." "And how did you get up onto my windowsill?" "No, don't answer that. Hang on a moment. I dreamed that part of it too. I dreamed that a giant put you there." "He did, Your Majesty," Sophie said. The maid gave a howl of anguish and clasped her hands over her face. So anguish means distress, yeah? Or being upset, yeah? "Control yourself, Mary," the Queen said sharply. Then to Sophie she said, "You are not serious about the giant, are you?" "Oh, yes, Your Majesty. He's out there in the garden now." "Is he indeed?" the Queen said. The sheer absurdity of it all was helping her to regain her composure. "So he's in the garden, is he?" she said, smiling a little. "He is a good giant, Your Majesty," Sophie said. "You need not be frightened of him." "I'm delighted to hear it," the Queen said, still smiling. "He's my best friend, Your Majesty." "How nice," the Queen said. "He's a lovely giant, Your Majesty." "I'm quite sure he is," the Queen said. "But why have you and this giant come to see me?" "I think you have dreamed that part of it too, Your Majesty," Sophie said calmly. That pulled the Queen up short. It took the smile right off her face. She certainly had dreamed that part of it. She was remembering now how, at the end of her dream, it had said that a little girl and a big friendly giant would come and show her how to find the 9 horrible man-eating giants. But be careful, the Queen told herself. Keep very calm, because this is surely not very far from the place where madness begins. Okay? "I don't see any giant," the Queen said. "Please wait," Sophie said. "Shall I take her away now, ma'am?" the maid said. "Take her downstairs and give her some breakfast," the Queen said. 24 feet tall, wearing his black cloak with the grace of a nobleman, still carrying his long trumpet in one hand, he strode magnificently across the palace lawn towards the window. The maid screamed. The Queen gasped. Sophie waved. The BFG took his time. He was very dignified in his approach. So dignified means he was very, like, respectable, yeah? So he moves in a very respectable way. When he was close to the window, where the three of them were standing, he stood and made a slow, graceful bow. His head, after he had straightened up again, was almost exactly level with the watchers at the window. So there we see him walking over. Your Majesty, he said, I is your humbug servant. What is he trying to say there? When he says your humbug servant, what does he mean? Does anyone know? What do you think, Alice?
I think he's saying your very honest servant.
Yeah, in the past, people used to say humble servant. This was a phrase. So people would say, I'm your humble servant. So humble means kind of modest, or sort of it's like the opposite of arrogant. Yeah, not arrogant. So when he says, I am your humbug servant, he means I am your humble servant, which is an old-fashioned phrase people used to use. He bowed again.